This is the story about the clan that has absolutely dominated Destiny. From world record speedruns to low man challenges, and of course the plethora of world's first raids, this clan has done it all. This clan has stretched their wings far and wide into YouTube and Twitch as well, and some names you may not know are a part of this clan, but their impact cannot go without a story being told. So let's tell you about the clan that had 2 #1 most subscribed Twitch channels to their name, and some of the craziest stories you may not know about. Let's tell you about the story of Clan Redeem. Some footage in this video is from players around the community. Their links will be in the description of this video as well as the music too. This video is made in collaboration with Clan Redeem. Please go follow all them. Links will be in the description. Enjoy the video, like and subscribe if you want to. Love you. Let me set the space for this story. The year is 2015, and a player named Modern Tryhard is in a clan called the Legend himself. This clan is led by none other than the man to solo a raid boss first, Slayerage, and the clan itself was a powerhouse when it came to pushing the game to its limits, and Modern was someone who would go on to start his own version of this. Modern and a few others from Slayerage's chat had seen some of Giggle Monsters, or Gigs, speedruns and made their own fire team to compete in speedruns without a clan name. Their first speedrun was an 8-minute and 59-second Crota. Their next was a hard mode Vault of Glass world record of 24 minutes and 42 seconds, and the starting 6 was coming together with the new clan name Redeem. The founding fathers were PVT Nuclear, Shoot for Cookies, and Modern, with the official starting being Modern, PVT Nuclear, Cookies, and then Magnetic Rubber, Alibay, Zerky, and a player who I think at this point everyone in gaming knows. A guy who streamed Destiny to a somewhat small audience but was stoked on challenges and came in to give Clan Redeem a known presence in the community. A guy named Tfue. Yeah, that Tfue. The default Fortnite skin was once a hardcore Destiny speedrunner, challenge seeker, and day 1 raid expert. In general, this clan obviously wasn't where they are today, but the seed was planted and the roots were starting to grow. Still 2015, but later that year, the raid King's Fall comes out.
Not face this alone. 6 of you must rise and stand together as the king falls.
Team Redeem's original 6 comes in 2nd place in the world's first hard mode raid race. A big accomplishment, but not the result they had shot for when making the clan. So after the world's first race, Redeem went to the route they always did: speedruns and challenges. Redeem had also brought in a few other members, one of which will be featured a lot later into this video, but for now was not a household name. Glad He Ate Her, or X-Glad, or just Glad if you want to be that simple about it, impressed Redeem with his various solo challenges, which included some Crota shenanigans.
Invisible Crota solo, or blindfold Crota solo. Yes. Yo. Left. Right. Walk 1. Take him down. Smash 3. No! No! Oh, I got him! I got him! I got him! 180! I got him! But all I'm saying is Crota was just beaten with a fucking
Rock Band voice commands microphone.
Another clan at that time was also competing in the same categories and was constantly fighting for the top spot on world records. This clan was named Hidden Machine, and they had some of the best players in the world at that time. Led by a player named HMO5, Hidden Machine was all about coming up with strategies for soloing Oryx, doing challenges, speedruns, etc. Just like how the Legend Himself clan was all about challenges and Slayerage had the first solo raid boss ever, Hidden Machine and Redeem wanted to get the brand new raid boss done solo. I won't beat around the bush, Redeem and Hidden Machine really didn't like each other at the time. But when there was controversy for who came up with the strategies to solo Oryx, Redeem actually had Hidden Machine's back. Eventually, HMO5 would go on to stop playing Destiny altogether, so the remaining members of Hidden Machine would eventually merge with Redeem. This included Error, aka YouTube's How to Break the Game of Destiny, Flesh Crunch, everyone's favorite Navy captain,
Bro, I'm the captain of this Navy.
Josh, aka Redeem community guy, Sneed, or that guy who was Tfue for a world's first raid, etc. The main goal of the merge was to make a powerhouse of a clan that would dominate world's first raids, challenges, speedruns, world records, etc., etc. And dominate they did. On average, outside of one raid, Redeem never placed outside of the top 10 in raid races, but we will get to all those. Well, right now. We're gonna get to all the raids right now. After the merge between Hidden Machine and Redeem, the expectation was nothing short of first or last. The day was September 23rd, 2016, and the air in the room was that of any major sporting event, if I'm being honest. Not knowing what to fully expect, but preparing yourself for what's coming and racing for a solid world's first time. This clan was also super hungry to get their very first raid world's first after losing hard mode King's Fall and coming in second place. It was time to redeem themselves. Puns aside, this was a huge moment. The fire team was Modern, Error, Flesh Crunch, Magnetic Rubber, PB2 Nuclear, and Sneed. But not really Sneed. This was actually Tfue, since he was on vacation all week during the prep and Sneed let him hop on his account to attempt the raid. This was actually controversial to some for some reason, but for most it was just kind of funny. The theme of the world's first attempt was hard work leading to fortunate circumstances, and capitalizing on those circumstances. In Vosik, who was the first boss of the Wrath of the Machine raid, his room was full of monitors, and Redeem accidentally figured out the mechanic to save themselves from dying. PB2 Nuclear randomly saw the key wall and looked interesting to him.
Okay, we have to get in the room. We have to get in one of these rooms, get in one of these rooms, get in one of these rooms, quick.
Got it.
Do we have to shoot the monitors?
Got it, let's go, boys.
Alright, get our runs.
How did you do it?
Nuke is a god. You shoot the lock.
That key was the way to stop the boss from wiping you, and with that knowledge, the next attempt they actually killed Vosik.
Quickly, guys, quickly. Be ready to drop a shield, like instantly. Be ready to drop a shield. Walls.
Get the ball.
Got it. Hold up, give me a second. Oh, whatever, I got middle. Nuke it left. Nuke it. 3, 2, 1, bro. I got tether.
Hardcore deep.
Oh, nuke tether, yep, alright.
Hardcore deep. He's almost dead. Let him
He's gonna teleport here. Alright, yep. Alright, cool. We got him. Good job, guys. Keep it up.
Next, the crazy Zamboni fight that was showed on the trailer. Flesh Crunch disconnected from the game, which sucked at first until he came back and respawned behind the Zamboni, which meant that he could jump on top for an easy second try at that encounter.
I'm in an insta-kill, dude.
Right here. It's got to be right here.
I'm in an insta-kill. Go. Someone pick it up.
Alright, there we go. Go! Let's go. Let's f***ing go, boys. Alright, who's staying back for a rubber? I'll take it.
Good teamwork.
Axis Phase 1 was also pretty easy for the team, but where they struggled was Axis Phase number 2, which had players needing to throw orbs at the boss, then triangle position themselves to stun his back with the empowered buff. The buff which chose 3 at random to have it, so you needed to position yourself accordingly. The team wasn't able to figure this out for a very long time, but on one run, Axis was doing his thing, teleporting around the room, and Modern just happened to be randomly selected with the empowered buff. Modern was just jumping around, messing around when he noticed a text prompt to deposit his empowerment onto Axis? What was this?
Alright. Right side.
Oh, stun him. You press. Lol.
You jump on top of it?
Yeah.
You
There
jump
we
on
go.
top of them. All right, let's go.
Shoot it.
Now shoot him.
Quickly, guys. We have to do
Yeah.
this here.
Oh, yeah.
Dolly's gonna figure this out soon.
Once this was figured out, Axis was literally defeated on the next attempt. That is the important theme of a lot of raids in Destiny. Mechanics are the hard part to figure out, but once they are figured out, it's usually 1 or 2 attempts to beat the encounter. Team Redeem claimed their very first ever world's first raid and accomplished what they set out to do. With a time of about 2 hours, this was the fastest a world's first raid had ever been beaten at that time. Now, on to hard mode. This will be a shorter section, but one of the most important ones in the history of Team Redeem. Hard mode raids mattered a lot in the scene, and here is why. Think about hard mode raids like New Game Plus, but for Destiny. A raid can be the same area, but new mechanics are added. No reviving is allowed outside of Warlocks using self-res, which was exclusive to Destiny 1, and it's more of a sprint, while normal mode is like a marathon. Teams prepare to basically speedrun this version of the raid, and there's usually some added loot, higher power drops, more challenge, and overall the best possible experience to be had. Now, when Team Redeem was racing on the hard mode release, something crazy happened to them. The Zamboni glitch.
It's gonna be better here though, because it's gonna stun the captain. Dark Drinker, you're just gonna be swinging at him for like a couple seconds without stun at all.
I still think G but
I'm gonna keep G-Horn for now and see how it works.
I don't even have Raise Lighted on me.
I don't want to get like baked.
What?
How?
Push too far forward.
Are you kidding me?
What?
Are you kidding me, Bungie?
Oh, there goes world's first.
We
Guys,
push.
we still get it, dude.
Are you kidding me, Bungie?
Wow, well, I've never gotten so fucked in my life.
After Redeem beat the Zamboni encounter, they pushed ahead as any team would do. But what they didn't know is that the Zamboni had a glitch if you went too fast. It would kill everybody and make the encounter start over again. This is what ultimately happened here. With the clan having to start it over again, the race was all but finished, but this story was nowhere near finished. This glitch was talked about more than the actual world's first hard mode race, and the clan felt deflated and cheated. But more than anything, it was a learning experience going forward to how to handle defeat when you have won. The initial perception of Redeem has also not always been good, but more on that later. This was just the first community-wide controversy they were a part of, and it fired them up even more for the release of Destiny 2. A couple of things have happened from the end of Destiny 1 going into Destiny 2. First, Redeem, who used to have a hierarchy of leadership, completely dropped that in favor of keeping it even between every member. And number 2, a second merge happened. On January 1st, 2017, Modern does a speedrun with a couple of runners, one of which is named X the Fish X, and the other is named Sweatsicle, and they snag a world record. Later that month, Sweat and his clan Team Brisk ended up joining Redeem. This included the Fish and Hazabo, Dr. Wonker, and even more. This was an elite bunch, and Sweat especially would go on to be a part of Day 1 teams in the future. But for now, this laid down the foundation even further of what Redeem was going to be. Other than these two things happening, Redeem members were absolutely dominating challenges and speedruns further.
Yeah. On. we go. Here we go, come on!
Later, bitch. Get out of here. Get out of here. You wanna go play?
Oh my god! We did it! We did it! Oh my god! We did it! No way! Oh my god! Oh my god, I'm shaking. Oh my god.
The start of Destiny 2 is always an interesting story, but whether you love it or hate it, one thing was clear. This would be the time for Team Redeem to prove themselves. This new raid was the time to show everyone what they were made of and make that comeback to a win after the unfortunate loss in hard mode Wrath. I want you to take a journey back into time to the start of Destiny 2. There is a finite amount of drops from the game for power level increase. Once you hit your max for the week, that is it. No prime engrams to give you levels, no abusing competitive for more levels either, just the Nightfall, some strikes, some crucible, and exotic quests. Exotic quests especially were good for leveling since they were giving good amounts of power increase, so what was one to do when all 3 characters were done for the week's drops? Vault everything, of course, and make new characters! The raid was set to be released a week after Destiny 2 came out, so that gave Redeem 6 days to make some new characters, run through the whole campaign again, no collections tab, double primary weapons because haha, you're one! And a lot of grinding to keep getting gear, usually only going up in tiny increments of levels at a time. So take all of that information and holy crap, it's insane to say that Error, Modern, and Flesh Crunch were making 2 new characters a day for powerful drops by the end of that 6-day period. Guys, we're talking 16 hours a day of grinding. Error even made up to 9 characters total before the raid came out. It got so crazy that Bungie even had to patch in a cap on powerful drops per account to prevent players from over-leveling for the raid's cap and making characters. They were beyond ready for day 1, guys. So if you know anything about the Leviathan raid, you know it was a raid all about testing your abilities in different ways in an almost game show like arena with Callus, the raid's final boss, commenting on how great you did after you beat the encounter and shooting off fireworks in the background too. You also know that on day 1 with this double primary weapon meta that this was supposed to be really hard. Well, this team of Error, Modern, Flesh, Rubber, Tfue, and Sneed was super leveled for this raid and ready to beat it. Redeem picked up on mechanics fairly quickly in this raid, except for Gauntlet, which was really the first ever puzzle encounter in a raid to this point. What also didn't help, especially with Gauntlet and even further on, was that Error's cat actually chewed through his headset cord and made Error have to use a speaker on his phone to talk, which made callouts and awareness of the encounters a bit harder to manage. They made it to the final boss, Callus, in great time and still were on pace to grab another world's first. Think back to what I said about how the best teams can beat encounters on the 2nd or 3rd try if they know how the mechanics work. Well, this team had Callus under 20% health and were way ahead of every other team, but a new mechanic was introduced. Normally when damaging Callus, he shoots a cannon at you after your plate is being done, being able to let you do damage. The problem here though was that Callus had a new attack under this amount of health. He launched magma at you in this phase, and there was no well of radiance to back you up back then, so that spelled doom for this run. Redeem was taken very far back by losing that fight, and because of this loss of focus and holding on to that run so much, they ended up losing to Modern's old clan, the Legend himself.
Alright, everybody get on the plate as soon as you can.
Shoot him. One. We got him. Let's go. Got him.
Oh my god. Woo!
Oh my god.
Nice!
Let's go.
Oh man, that was too close.
That was way too Oh my god.
Nice.
This was not only the end of the world's first for them, but it was also the beginning of the end of that day one team playing together. Tfue, for example, had been checking out this little tiny indie game called Fortman at the time. Fortman was something for him to play while he was getting burned out on Destiny, but it quickly was blossoming into success for him. So he started drifting away from the Destiny scene for the most part. Rubber and Sneed had also stopped playing Destiny 2 at this time, and Flesh had taken a long break from it. So Redeem had to bring in some reserves. This is what we will call the start of the new Redeem era. Error, Flesh, and Modern were sort of a bridge to the old and new teams in a sense, and even though Flesh wouldn't be in the next race, he still stuck around quite a bit. The players that would be a part of the next world's first attempt would be Modern and Error, sure, but also joined by Glad, Sweatcicle, and a beast of a speedrunner named Indica, with another animal involved named Senior Snubby. With this lineup, would Redeem be able to snag the equivalent to a hard mode raid, Prestige Leviathan? Team Redeem was set to go for Prestige Levy, and nothing was to stand in their way, as they started to blast through every encounter leading up to Callus. Blasted is the key word here, and I want to give you context of what happened with Prestige Leviathan and the Wardcliff Coil. The Wardcliff Coil is an exotic heavy ammo rocket launcher inside of Destiny 2. This weapon fires a volley of smaller rockets and does pretty good damage. It was discovered very quickly into Destiny 2's life that a glitch with the coil was out.
The Wardcliff Coil is a very unique weapon. Every rocket fired from the coil breaks into 8 smaller rockets that track enemies individually and do their own damage. For this effect to work, each of the 8 smaller rockets are treated as their own entity. Therefore, in the coding, 1 coil equals 8 rockets. When you switch off coil with 1 rocket to another rocket, for example, the game checks your ammo counts in the coil and sees that you have 8 rockets, then checks the new rocket's max ammo, which is 6. The game then realizes you have more than full ammo. This works with every weapon and also explains why switching to coil always leaves you with no ammo, since 1 coil is treated as more ammo than any other power weapon you can ever equip. This is a bug, not a cheat or an exploit.
Basically what that video is explaining is that you could turn 1 Wardcliff shot into full ammo for another heavy weapon simply by just switching to the other heavy. So if a player runs out of heavy, they would switch to Wardcliff Coil, pick up 1 heavy brick on the ground, then switch back to whatever heavy they wanted to have full ammo for, and it was going to have it. And everyone competing was using this. Also with Wardcliff, you could infinitely shoot them if you wanted to. Bungie even made a post about what wasn't allowed in the world's first Prestige race and never included the Coil Glitch as a part of that. Keep in mind that players from every top team competing at the time were using this glitch as well. This was also not one of those hidden bugs that a clan would try to hide from everybody else. This was something that was very, very well known to the whole entire Destiny community. So Redeem makes it to Callus, and they claim a world's first on Prestige Leviathan. But this time, instead of a game cheated them like hard mode Wrath, articles were being written about the clan saying they cheated the game. This was taken very far out of context, and lots of people were against them in the community after this moment. But one thing was clear, they got another world's first, this time with a brand new team. The Raid Eater of Worlds is a culmination of what Destiny 2 Year 1 was truly like. Short, easy, and to be honest, boring. Sure, this is my opinion on it, and this raid in particular will get its own video one day, but a couple of turning points in Redeem's lineage happened here. This was the last time Tfue would ever touch Destiny 2. Unless you're watching in the future, then he might be back. This raid was actually beaten to my knowledge by an LFG group, and it really came down to beating the encounters in the first or second attempt.
Suicide.
Yes!
What? Res them.
No, it's done. There's no timer.
Wait for the challenge.
Keep shooting them.
No, we're done.
Yes!
What time is it? What time
Yes!
is it? 2:36.
If you messed up once or twice, you just weren't getting the world's first. The raid was beaten in 1 hour and 37 minutes, and it's super impressive that an LFG group got it done first, and I don't want to take away from the accomplishment. I just want to add context to the fact that it was about 2 encounters long and not really much happening in the way of challenge outside of the final encounter. So when you made it to Argos and you shot Argos with the prisms to drop the shield and did some damage, a mechanic happened that was kind of weird. Argos seemingly was summoning this ball. Error at the time had thought this was a white mechanic when it was actually a stun mechanic where you needed to shoot the white spots on the boss. And this slowed Redeem down a lot. So much so that they ended at number 50 in the leaderboard on time clear. This was when Error sort of stopped being the main shot caller of the group. But the next one that they were really hunting was the next raid layer that was going to be coming out. With Tfue officially gone, it was time for the new era to grab their first ever new raid world's first. But some challenges stood in the way. Remember when I said once the mechanics were figured out, it was pretty much over for the top teams in the world? Well, Spire of Stars was different in the fact that it was just brutally difficult.
Keep moving.
Keep moving.
He's shooting things.
Yeah, keep moving. Someone res me if you can.
He makes a noise. Move. Oh, wow. Okay, wow.
Where is his
Keep jumping. Just keep jumping.
Oh!
Dude, cluster bomb rockets.
No Well of Radiance, you had tough enemies, unforgiving mechanics, and no cover and lots of gunfights meant that you not only had to know your role, but you had to perfect your role. Almost everyone racing made it to the boss fight, Valkaor, very quickly, but this is where the brick wall hit them hard. What also didn't help was that Flesh Crunch disconnected from the raid.
Alright, pooping.
R2. Gonna be R2.
Flush? Oh, flush DC'd again. Flush DC'd again.
Dude, I say get Eon. No more. Like, that's just gonna continue to happen.
So Eon Styles, another member of Redeem, had to step in and step up. Here was the other challenge. Eon barely understood and spoke English at the time, so they had to hope and pray that Eon could pick up on the mechanics and what they were saying. Another problem, Indica also disconnected on one of their best runs yet. With the team nervous as ever and starting to feel the pressure, how would they get this done? Well, Indica was able to get back in and Eon stepped the hell up, and the rest was history.
Melting point!
Point on. Point on.
Frag this guy.
Alright, make sure you grab a ball, then shoot instantly after you get your ball. So only grab one ball each.
Helping Modern, go, come on.
Alright, get ready for balls. Alright, go.
Ready for balls?
Balls and then rockets.
I don't have
Just
any.
shoot at him in general.
Shoot him.
So I got this, I want to shoot.
Shoot him.
Shoot.
I got
Keep
the ball.
shooting.
I got the ball.
Go
I got
the
it.
back. Go ahead.
I
Throw the ball.
died.
No!
We got him.
Chill.
GG, boys. GG.
GG, boys.
guys.
GG, boys.
This was also the turning point for the community view of them from the Wardcliff Coil story, and was the time they really truly got deep into content creation, from doing boss memes with weapons to just pushing themselves hard in the way of entertainment. You see, one thing about World's First raid wins is that everyone wants to see what you can do next, so they keep an eye on you. But when you have 4 total wins for World's First raids and many other accolades, this goes from an eye on you to a total, full-on following. Redeem had already established this, but this is when they really push for it. As the next challenge was not in Destiny, but the next challenge was to take over YouTube and Twitch.
Getting absolutely railed. Holy crap. Hey, GG boys!
is.
Destiny 2 Forsaken was the best thing that has ever happened to Destiny. Not only did it revert all the objectively bad parts of Year 1, but it single-handedly reinvented the wheel on weapon systems, abilities, armor, leveling, story, endgame secrets, lore, and especially a raiding experience. Let's focus on levels for a second and how they work. Like I stated in my Last Wish video, you should check that out, I like to give you context as to why stakes are high, emotions higher, and challenge a true pinnacle. The raid Last Wish dropped on us Friday, September 14th at 1 PM Eastern, 10 AM Pacific. This was released a whole 10 days from Forsaken's launch of September 4th that same month. Now, this is the longest we have ever had to wait for a Destiny raid, and for good reason. Forsaken launched with many players starting out at power level 380 with the goal to reach 500 by the end of the campaign. In that video, I talked about how leveling had a sort of cap with prime engrams, a powerful legendary engram drop that gave you a 5 to 7 bonus on a single piece of your gear would be the final way to gain levels. You were only supposed to get one per character per day, but this ended up becoming the farm if you didn't pick up the engram. So, in the weekly challenge in the Dreaming City called the Ascendant Challenge, you could farm knights forever and they had a high chance to drop engrams. Keep in mind, Whisper of the Worm still had infinite ammo with White Nail and did lots of damage, and you could make a huge amount of them.
So like I was saying, in order to farm prime engrams, you need this buff, which resets daily at 1 PM EST, and this is a chance to receive a powerful prime engram by defeating challenging enemies. And in this lost sector on the Dreaming City that is right here, there is a boss that is, oh, what do you know, a challenging enemy. And when you kill him, he has a chance to drop a powerful, or a prime engram, which I guess I'm not going to show you killing it, but this is what a prime engram looks like when you do kill it. This is what a regular one is, so you'll know what it looks like. Don't pick it up, or else you would lose the buff.
Once you were done for the day, you picked them all up and turned them all in. Lots of hardcore players were doing this, and Redeem was one of the teams doing this too. Most teams on raid day were around power level 540, but players who did this were around 550. Remember, the final encounter is 580, so this was kind of just a drop in the bucket, but it helped still. Only a couple of problems faced Redeem going into day 1. The pressure of having to live up to the hype, and Glad being deathly sick, hospital bed sick. This led to people actually thinking he was cheating, but he was just sick. So you know the story of the raid itself from that video, so I won't go too far into it, but one thing was clear. With only 2 teams beating this raid in 24 hours, prime engrams were not the reason for the wins. No, it was skill and execution of the top 2 teams. Last Wish was the crowning achievement not only for Destiny 2 and Forsaken, but Team Redeem as well. Spire of Stars may have started their content careers in the right direction, but Forsaken had made them household names in video making and streaming. Overall, this was a really awesome moment to be a part of, and like I said in that video, this was the raid and this was the race that got me into raid racing, into challenges, into just the Destiny community as a whole. I had played Destiny 1 from the beta, and this raid right here was really the turning point for me, really pushing hard on trying to join the community after seeing how awesome this event was. Team Redeem went on to accomplish some crazy things in the following time. From Tfue being one of the most known gamers in the world and being at the top spot of subscribed channels on Twitch, to Glad just recently taking that spot on Twitch, Team Redeem has left a huge mark on content creation. The rest of the clan has absolutely dominated the space too. Now, with this, it's also important that I say that Clan Redeem has not won a World's First since Last Wish. The clan has still placed top 10 in almost all of these raids, but no firsts have been completed. If I had to say something from talking to the players, it's not that they don't care much at all, it's just that the level of competition has increased, as well as their own channels have become a lot to deal with. It's still just a group of friends who want to win, it's just that the clan has matured into something more, a household name in the gaming community, a team who has been there, done that, and more. Now is the time they grow as creators. The team is still a powerhouse in almost every way, but the hunger of other competition to have a world's first belt can sometimes be greater. Who knows though, maybe the next raid will come out and they'll slay out and grab another world's first. We'll just have to see. I want to say another big thank you to Clan Redeem for collaborating with me on this video, and if you did like their story, you should go check the clan out. All of their links are in the description, and if you enjoyed this video, a like would be greatly appreciated, as well as a subscription. I want to thank you so much for 40k subs, and that is a large number, and seeing how close we are to Twitch partner is also insane. Thank you so much for watching this, and I hope you enjoyed the bloopers. I'll see you guys next time. Peace!
Oh, where'd he go?
Holy shit!
Dude. Is he good? Is that it?
It's 3 symbols, so it's 3 houses. 3. And then you get to level 7.
Bitch, boy, let's go. Alright, going in.
I'm charging in, dude.
We didn't do anything. Don't charge me.
Fuck, man. And then you get to level 7.
Oh shit. That's my bad, dude. I was shooting it wrong.